Alright, Chapter 3, Basic Strategy. During the Christmas vacation, my wife and I decided to relax with a teaching due to the University of California at Los Angeles by spending a few days in Las Vegas. We both had been there before, but we were not gamblers. We enjoyed the show, the luxurious low-cost meal in season with the swimming pools. Before we took the trip, Professor Sorgen Frey of the UCLA told me a recent article of one of the mathematical journals. The article described the strategy of the blackjack allegedly limited the house to a tiny over edge of 62%, 0.62%. Because this figure is so nearly even, so much better than a player than any of the other casino games, I wrote the strategy on a little card and carried it on the trip. When I arrived at the blackjack table, I purchased 10 silver dollars. I didn't expect to win, but I wanted to see how long the stack would last as well as try out the strategy under fire. In a few moments, the loudness of my people in little card in my palm, he attracted and amused the eye. This bystander, the dealer, could not conceal his scorn for one or more system. The sediments were placed with a pity when those people that saw the way I played and split a pair of lowly eights and doubled the amount with the money being of the risk. And the dealer's up card was powerful. Ace. Had anyone ever seen a player double down on an ace and a 2 against a 5. One chooses to stand on a piteous 12 hard against a 4. To add the poor beginner's miscry, Theo was having a very strong run of luck. However, every player at the table was losing heavily. Surely my 10 crumbs would soon be swept away, or would they? Somehow the weird plays kept turning out right, and the other players lost heaps of chips. My little stack held and even inched up once. After 20 minutes, most of it was still there, beginner's luck. Then a strange thing happened. I was dealt an ace and a 2. I drew a 2 and then a 3, and I now had an ace, 2, 2, and a 3. So we had a soft 18. The dealer had 9 up, but he might have had 19. Only a fool would draw again and risk the destruction of such a good hand. I consulted my card and drew, and with no little satisfaction, several tic-tacs amused on the lookers saw me draw a 6. A hard 14 serves me right. I drew an ace, which gave me a hard 15. Tough luck, I drew again a 6, and now, or even a 7, and a 6 I now held. Or a 7 card 21. This is an event so rare when it only happens once per several thousand hands. After a moment of shock, some of the bystanders said I had $20 bonus coming, but the dealer said no, it's only one paid out a few places in Reno. I was unaware that such a bonus, but I thought it might be amusing to create an impression that I sacrificed a soft 18 because I foresaw 7 card 21, and who knows that they might even pay me. Of course, they did not. By amusement, patronizing attitude, some of the bystanders changed to respective attentiveness, even to goose and pimples. After 15 minutes after the obliteration of the dealer of all my fellow players, I was behind a total of 8 1/2 silver dollars. Decided to stop, but the atmosphere of ignorant superstition that pervaded little experience securely planted me in my mind, suggesting that even the good players did not know the fundamentals of the game that might way to beat it. When I returned home, I began an intensive study of the game. I convinced once of the winning system could be devised with the help of the high-speed electronic calculator. First step, finding such a system. I used the IBM 704 computer to improve the strategy discussed in above the episode. A revised version, which I call the basic strategy, we'll learn in this chapter. Foundation winning strategy for the later chapters. Calculation show the typical casino of the player who uses the correct basic strategy has an edge of 0.12% over the house. In some casinos, the player can actually have a narrow advantage as much as 0.6%. In casino in which most rules the player has a disadvantage less than 1%. Against some of the automatic blackjack machines, basic strategy players should theoretically have an advantage of 1.6% and be able to win consistently. For details, chapter 9. Time at a time, again, you will need to use the basic strategy while waiting for more favorable betting situations to arise. It's most completely memorized that any decision it calls for can be made without hesitation. The player's decision. As we saw with the later chapter, the game begins with certain preliminaries where the players are seated to the deck with a shuffle. The dealer cut by a player. The dealer burns a card after the player has placed their bets on the table in front of them. The dealer gives the 2 cards on to each player and himself. The mentioned previously, one of the dealer's card is up, the other down. At this point, the player must make the number of decisions. Principal one to whether to split a pair, or if he has one, whether to double down or not, whether to stand or to draw. In the general, what the player should do that depends on the card or hold the dealer's up card, and on any other cards that the player may have. However, in this chapter, the player completely ignores all cards he has except his old cards and the dealer's up card. Basic strategy given in this chapter is the best possible way to play with the information alone. Later, we shall improve the strategies using knowledge gained both from players seeing which cards were consumed in previous rounds of play, and also for his seeing on the current round of play exposed cards other than his own whole card and dealer's up card. Player's key decision: pairing, splitting, doubling, standing, or drawing in the order in which he makes them, illustrated in Figure 311. Or the basic strategy: drawing and standing with the greater majority of the hands of the player of neither split or pair and double down. The decision is producing whether he or she stand, draw, or stand. Since the decision is the simplest, most important part of the strategy, we shall learn it first. Temporarily neglecting possibility, pair, splitting, and double down. We hard hand of the table 3-1 in order to decide whether to stand with the currently total draw one more additional cards in an effort to improve the hand. Noted Table 3-1 recommends drawing on all hard totals of 11 or less reasonably, because the player who does this cannot bust and must increase his total. Do you have a pair? Split pair? Do you have a pair? No or yes? If so, split the pair. Double down. If you're doubling down, no. No. Draw. Yes. Stand and. Alright, drawing on standing, hard-hitting hands. The black filled-in part are hard stands on dealers 7 when you have 17, 8, 9, 10, and ace. 16, 15, and 14, you don't stand on 13 and 12. 13, you stand on 2 and 3. 12, you stand on 4, 5, and 6. Table in 3-1 pictorial: hard standing number. The hardest standing number of the certain dealer's up card is simply the smallest total you stand against that the up card. For example, the dealer shows a 7. Table 311 shows the standing number is 17. This is your goal with your hard hand. Your stand is a hard total of 17 or more. You draw with the hard totals are 16 or less. Dealer shows you 6 as an up card. Standing number drops to 12. Now you stand on 12 or more and draw 11 or less. Person who is comfortable with the basic strategy can have the refinements to note it that happens to be so far with the dealer's up cards 10. Refinement of the totals are hard against 16 against the 10. Actually consider cards in addition to the player's whole cards and anticipate later results. Notice also that if you stand with given the total against the dealer's up card, you also stand on all higher totals against that up card. Similarly, if you draw on a given total against the given up card, you also draw to all lower totals against the up card. That shows soft hands 8 and 19 and 18. Dealer's up card, your card at 19. You want a soft hand at 19 and 10, and then you hold that. You make a stand on an 18. I can't really read that actually. When your hand is soft on the table 3 or 2 for the order to decide whether you draw or stand on table 3 or 1 or 2, read the same way. However, we compare these when we are drawing the recommended with the much higher totals within soft hands and hard hands. Part of the reason for the difference will clear up the following argument. Remember that we saw the player with a hard total of 11 or less, nothing to lose or draw 1 card. Similarly, a player with a soft total of 16 less or nothing to lose. Since this hand is soft, it cannot bust by drawing a card because it puts him over 21. But when he continues to count the ace is 11, he automatically counts it as 1 instead. This reduction to 10 of the total will keep the player from busting no matter which card was drawn. If an ace is drawn, it can be counted as 1. If necessary, any other card will have the numerical value of 10 or less. Since the player with a soft total of 16, he cannot bust at drawing 1 or more cards. He cannot make his total poor. This because all final standings is total 16 or less equivalent If standing with the dealer bust, you win the same amount no matter what total it is. Whenever the 16 or less of 16 makes no difference, you stand at 16 or less, the dealer does not bust, then by rules he must have ended up with a total between 17 and 21, automatically beats all 16s under. Therefore, if you draw a soft 16 or less, you cannot harm yourself. In fact, you may be able to help yourself. For example, an ace and a 5, you can improve your chances by tying or winning with a card that is any one of the following: ace 2, 3, 4, 5 on holding, or you can improve your chances tying, winning with the card, drawing any one of the following. And you can improve your chances to tie or win the card and win if your card drawing is 3, 4, 5, or 6, or 7. When you draw a soft 17, there's a small possibility of loss. If you stand with the dealer also has 17, you will tie him, and this avoids losing your bet. Or if you draw the soft 17, you may convert your hand into a hard hand that totals less than 17. If you then stand on this, you are worse off than bet it before, because for the dealer may end up with the exactly 17. Now you lose, whereas you would have tied. If you draw him on a hard hand, you may bust and lose it once. For example, an ace and 3, soft 17. Suppose the 5 is drawn and ace 3, 3, 5. You have a hard 12. If the dealer shows a 5, the table recommends standing. If the dealer shows an ace, the table recommends drawing. If the 10 is drawn, we'll reach ace 22, even counting as aces once, and bust. Besides, the chances of making a hard or poor drawing on soft 17 continue. Calculations show that the risk is more likely offset with the possibility of improving your hand. Thus, an ace and 6, you may draw an ace 2, or 3, or 4, although all of which were in prove your hand. Even though if you draw 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, or 10, you do not bust. You still have another card you wish, which will try to do the good total. And sometimes take a little willpower to follow these instructions. More than once I've been confronted with a heart stopper like this. I was playing a big money game in a certain Nevada casino by a card counting method of the later chapter. I knew that I had a 5% edge on the next round of play. Therefore, I placed the maximum bet of 500. The dealer's up card was a 7. It was dealt in I was dealt in an 8 and a 6 of soft 17. So the remaining cards in the deck consisted largely of 10s. I was fairly content. I was certain that the dealer had 17, since there was only 4 cards that would help me from an ace, 2, or 3, or 4. 5 would hurt me, and a 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Reluctant draw, I inclined to play for a tie. Nevertheless, I gritted my truth and drew once in receiving an 8. I now had a hard 15. Held my breath and drew again. At the time I received an ace. Now I held a hard 16. Resignedly I drew again and receiving to amazement a 3. I now to stand at the sign at my hard 19 when the dealer exposed his hand of surprise, held what happened to be the only ace yet unaccounted for. One had already appeared on the earlier round of the play. According to the rules of the game, he was required to stand. Basic strategy not only produced the one line of play that could save the $500, it doubled my money besides. We see table 3-2 with a minimum standing numbers on the soft hand similar to those of the 4 hands. Thus you should draw if your soft total is less than soft standing number given with the current up card of the dealer. If the same is soft total greater than or equal to his standing number, the reader who practices the basic strategy will soon know standing numbers well enough to dispense within table 3, 1, and 2. Suppose now you go to the casino to practice using standing numbers. You never double down, you never split players, you never insure. How will you do? Surprisingly enough, the casino's edge will only be about 2%. Your game is already close to even and is better than the methods recommended until you recently world's foremost card expert. See example 8. Basic strategy, double it down. Part of the strategy for the next importance, as well as the simplicity of the hard double it down, improbable, more convenient with the postpone memorizing soft double down strategies until after pairing splitting has been learned. But after the completeness, we should also discuss soft doubling down. As indicated in the figure 3-1, the decision about whether or not to double down must be made before that about drawing versus standing. The decision made by using table 3-3. Position up cards of the dealer's up again listed across the table with the top of the player's total with the list of the column on the left in order to decide whether the double down first see that the total appears in the column of the left If it does not appear, you should not double down. Instead, proceed to the next decision whether the draw or stand. If the total does appear, the running down with the column between the dealer's up card until you reach the row in which your total appears on the left. If the square location is shaded, double down. Note, the table has two parts. One part is soft hands, the other is hard hands only. To illustrate this table, 3-3, suppose that the dealer shows an ace and 3, you have then dealt an ace and 6, a soft 17. I'm locating an appropriate square, you find that it is a shade, therefore you double down, therefore several things in table 3-3. First, there's no total on which the player doubles down, regardless whether it a hard or soft. Second, hard doubling down is done only on totals of 11 or less. Soft doubling down is done only on the totals of 13 or more. Doubling down is a total of 12 is sometimes better than drawing. Both soft 12 means a pair of aces. It's better to split aces instead of doubling down with them. Observe the player always double downs on hard 11s, which are hard to play, which are hard 10s. Player double down except against ace and 10. Hard 10 is the less favorable total than the hard 12, except it is when the ace is drawn because the total of the player obtained with a double down on the hard is on one less than the total of the one wet. He was obtained by the doubling hard down on the double hard 11. The hard 9 is even favorable than a hard 10, less favorable than a hard 10, and a hard 8. The player rarely double downs. In fact, the situation where double down on a hard 8 are so rare that the gains are so slight that you can neglect them and partially not lose. So double down is a shaded, so you have an ace and a 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, an ace and a 6, you double down on 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then ace 5, ace 4, ace 3, ace 2, you double down on 4, 5, and 6. Dealer cards, and if you have an ace, you want to split those. Double down on the ace, and the ace is only if you cannot split. That's 4, 5, and 6. And then it shows hard doubling 11. If you have 11, double down on all hands. 10, double down everything but a 10 and an ace. And 9, double down on 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then 8 doesn't show double down. A conspicuous feature of the table of soft doubling down is recommended with a 7, 8, and 10 and ace. If it's hard to explain with a double down strategy without using mathematics, explain with the actual play soon engraved in them and in your memory. Always remember the double down soft 13 again of 5 because of the hand I played on a silver slipper in Las Vegas. This was the occasion, my friends, I had gone to see whether this casino would continue to play. When we began to win substantial amounts, I was varying bets between $1 and $10. Variation $1 to $3 would be wiser to the present. Now than thousands of the readers have beat the dealer that have inflicted bloody losses from the casino because I had frequently bet $1. We agreed I was not to raise my bet above $10 to do so would attract attention. However, the juicy situation with 6% advantage, I could not resist. I shoved out $30 to my satisfaction. The dealer up card turned up to be a 5. Most favorable card for the player. Confidentially, I turned up an ace and the 2 whole cards, doubled my bet, and I did not bother to look at the down card that was dealt because I expected the dealer to have the 10 down, but then drew another card, busting himself. To my honor, the dealer's whole card was a 4, and he drew expected the 10 for a total of 19. We resigned the loss. When the dealer turned up the whole card to settle the bet, it was a 7. There was a strange expression on the dealer's face. Look at by itself one thing, but a huge bet in advance made it seem like I could foretell the future, which I could, of course, to limited extent, although in case I was quite wrong about the details. What the dealer did not realize was that he was lucky to have 4 underneath as well. I was drawing a 7, and one characteristic of the basic strategy is that it makes those who use it considerably luckier than the average player in the instant made luck provide embarrassing. Once you've mastered the strategy, the hard double down, you're further cut the casino's edge by less than 1%. Basic strategy of splitting pairs. After you memorize strategy of the drawing and standing with a hard doubling, with not soft doubling 2. If the rest is easy, you are ready to add pair splitting into the repertoire. The detailed pair splitting strategy will be described in the following by a simple way to learn it. If you have the pair, figure 3-1 shows the first decision you should make, and for both doubling down and drawing with the whether or not to split, you can decide this by using table 3-4. If the most possible up card of the dealer listed in a row across the top of the possible pair of the player listed in the columns on the left. If you have a pair, run down the column below the dealer's top card until you get to the row labeled with your pair. If the square of the location is blank, do not split the pair. Your pair, proceed immediately to table 3-5. If the square is shaded, fair split your pair, then go on to table 3-3. If you have no pair, in this case, about to about to 6 times out of 7, skip to table 3-4 altogether, just directly to table 3-3. Table 3-4 seems imposing. You may replace it by an approximate set of rules that until they're always split aces and eights, never split 4, 5s, and 10s. Split the other pairs when the dealer shows the 3-2, the 7. The heavy lines of the table 3-4 indicate the set of rules. Notice the approximation introduces only 5 errors. Some of these errors are quite large because of the situations that are imprised, and frequently the effect is to add 10.13% to the overall house advantage. Once you've learned to use the approximate pair splitting rules with your doubling down and standing versus drawing strategy, you are ready to learn pair splitting strategy in detail. 100 pieces of information, table 3-4, and are easier to learn visualizing arrangement with squares. For example, information 40 of the squares contained in the rule: always split aces, 8s, and never split 5s and 10s. There are reasons for those rules may help to retain them. Aces should be split because they're a very good chance of getting a winning hand at even 21 with each of the new hands, whether it's original aces. The only fair double down, drawing, or standing. So table 3 shows pair splitting aces, 9s, and 9s, 6, 7s, 8s, and it shows the dealer play card. If the dealer has a 7, 8, or 9, or 10, and an ace up 8 should be split, not so much because of the good total would be obtained with each new hand, but because it's 16 in general. Bad total to hold. Reason 16 is unfavorable is when the dealer's up card is a 7 or higher. He is not likely to bust. If he does bust, he is sure to beat 7 and 16, thus splitting 8s, and again 7 through aces breaks up the bad hands. It turns out the new hands are very unfavorable. In fact, they have an above about average chance of winning, even though you're staking more money. You're move from the book and use while playing. As will become more expert, you will continue to consult card less frequently and finally not all. What to expect when using basic strategy. You're now familiar enough with the basic strategy to try the actual play. When the casino is not available, you play at home. Be sure to set the casino rules we have adopted are in force. This will be near considerable different procedure that we usually employed in a home game. Perhaps your friends will again into the interest learning something new about the blackjack. The following data may encourage you to try the basic strategy at the casinos, in spite of the fact that when you use it, you are still simply playing about even with a house. Table 3-6 describes the possible outcomes that can be expected if 100 hands, generally from 30 minutes to 1.5 hours of playing time, depending on spending of the dealer with the number of players at the table to play at $1 per hand. Also 1,000 hands, generally from 5 to 15 hours of the playing time, depending on the conditions, are played at $1 per hand. Amount better. If the amount bet per hand is different, just multiply all the other values by the appropriate number. For example, if you bet $5 per hand, multiply by $5. If you bet 50 cents per hand, multiply 0.5 divided by 2. Thus, average gain after $1,001 bets is $1, and after 100 $1 bets, the average gain is 10 cents. Thus, we regard the basic strategy essentially even, no real advantage to either side. Baldwin, although reports table 3-7 where their strategy is essentially the same as basic strategy, the number of the hands played in each group is near enough to 1,000. So if the pretended numbers of the hands played 1,000 each time, table 3-7, we can use it. They show the tables of the percentages. Second part of 3-6 rough check with the result of table 3-7 and everything normal except for the swinging of the negative $56 swinging and not resolve of the causes other than chance rare event. Table 3-6 tells that if the 1,000 hands are played, chance to swing negative $56 or more, less than 1/10%. With a small number of hands, the case is 770. The chance of swinging even less. In fact, the calculations show that 770 hands are played at $1 per hand. The probability of the player will lose is $56 or more. Turns out approximately 0.1%, and the odds against this are about 10,000 to 1. Comparison with the house percentage against the other blackjack strategies in other games remarked earlier, but the basic strategy is better than other blackjack strategies. This is also better than any published strategy for any other gambling game. Table 3.8 and 3.9 illustrate how much better. Some common blackjack area. The basic strategy blackjack was first published with a few insignificant areas baldwin, etc. 4 years later, the book was begun. Nothing in the blackjack strategy contains gross errors continuing to appear. In discussion to follow, we shall formulate experiment to demonstrate the trouble that most obvious of those of the errors. Some of the experiments will take reader less than an hour, for each reveals an error in one of the commonly recommended systems by comparing the feature of the basic strategy. The experiment convinces anyone who tried the basic strategy is correct on these points. When the other strategies are seriously an error, study of these experiments should enable you to formulate your own experiments with the test and growth differences between basic strategy and any other strategy. We can in principle test any discrepancy, not merely the large ones. In this case, close decisions. However, the experiments are unpleasantly long. Tables are referred to in the rest of the chart or in appendix. There's no need to refer to the understanding of the table. Understanding these tables, the important thing is to get the idea of how to check a strategy by experiment. First experiment, drawing versus standing holding a hard 16 against an ace. Table showing 1 shows the youth of the player would draw rather than stand on hard 16. Dealer has an ace shown, but again, an average of 14.6% in such situation. Put another, stand rather than draw hard 16 costs player an average of 14.6%. Following experimental design, refer to the review, remove a ace from the complete deck, place it on face up on the table. This represents the dealer's up card. Next, write the number 16 on the card on paper, place it in front of yourself. This represents the hard total. Of course, does not correspond exactly with the real situation. Game cards the player actually has drawn make up a total of hard 16. We alter the advantage of the drawing convincingly. If enough small cards are used to compromise the total, it may even be wise to stand. For example, consider a very close decision whether the two to stand draw holding a hard 16. Dealer up card is 10 according to table 2A. Drawing is favored, overstating the average gain of 2.9%, but then the player's hard 16 total is compromised of 4 fours. The precise figure is 6.382 in favor standing according to J.H. Braun. The objection used for the paper total when our experiment is answered to follow the player could replace over the experiment once he has played with a real game in blackjack, kept the record of the result standing versus drawing situation. His average long run result would be within 0.5% and 14.6% figure based on paper totals. Therefore, much of the time trouble can be saved with a paper total experiment. This consideration play the other experiments. Let's return to the experiment. Shuffle the deck and deal 200 dealer hands as follows. Assume that you stand on 16 and deal a card a hole, deal a card a dealer hole. If you get the natural, discard the 10 value card. Do not record the result. We do this with the question whether or not to draw with a hand on a hard 16 arises only if the dealer already checked and found he has a no natural. If the whole card is not a 10, continue dealing until the dealer either busts or achieves the total of the hard 17 or more. If the dealer busts with it, you win. If he does not bust, you lose. Record your result of discard. Use of cards. Discard the used cards and deal another hand. With 100 hands are dealt in this fashion, player will win on an average of 17 per hands and lose the rest. Following our assertion, table 3, with the players who stand on 16 when the dealer shows an ace, loses at a rate of 66%. Next, deal 200 hands as follows. Give the dealer one card as his whole card. If it is a 10, discard to deal with another card. Same reason as before. Now assume the drawing exactly one card of the total 16. If you bust, you lose. Discard the card, record the loss. If you do not bust, you have the hard total between 17 and 21. Stop drawing your hand on your own hand. If necessary, proceed to give the dealer further cards until he either busts or gets a total of 17 or more. Record whether you won or tied or lost. Continue. Your percentage wins should be figured out as the number of wins plus 1/2 of the ties. Every hand, for example, would be substantially the same as winning half, the losing half, no net gain. In this part, the experiment average number of wins per 100 hands should be 24.3, and with 200 hands, average separation between two ways playing hard 16s against aces would be 2 times 24.3 minus 17, which gives you 14.6 hands on each part of the experiment. However, there will be no chance for the deviations cited average totals. In fact, in time time in 50 standing hard 50 16s against an ace, we produced a better result over two hands than drawing. Second experiment is double down on hard tens against ace. The experiment is conducted much in the same way as the previous one, such as the whole cards 8 and 2 with a maximum error with 6.1% of the order that should attain. Shorten the experiment, the figure 6.1% would obtain with a table 4J, where we see whether the holding an 8 or 2 versus an ace. If we simply draw until we reach a suitable total for the long run, win we 8.6% on our bet. However, if we double down, we win only 2.5% of the original bet within longer run. This difference is 6.1%. Play about 400 hands with which you double down. After, subtract the number of hands lost with the number of hands won. Doubling the number takes into account your double bet on your double hands. If your total profit in 400 hands double down against the ace, remember to before the disregard all dealers' natural in your tally. If the dealer has a 10 under, give him another whole card. Next, play 400 hands with the following correct drawing standing strategy versus an ace. Table 3-5, your wins and minus losses give you a profit of 400 hands. On an average, 400 hands will have an excess win over less than 17.2 hands. Drawing and standing doubling down, you will have an average excessive win over losses of 5 hands. Third experiment is splitting a pair of sixes against a 5. According to table 4F, the game here with a splitting rather than standing is 7.2 plus 10.2 or 27.4%. If you stand, you have a net loss of 10.2 units per 100 bets. If you're splitting 100 hands become 200, you will win about 17.2 more than 200 hands than you lose. You have an average net gain of 27.4 units per 100 original hands by splitting rather than standing. 50 original hands of each type should be decisive. Alright, mimicking the dealer. To quote Baldwin, the player who mimics the dealer drawing 16 or less, standing on 17 more, never double down or splitting pairs has an expectation of 56 thousandths of a percent. This is a dealer of 5.6% edge. Let's just illustrate the eve of the table of one competing the figure of the player who mimics the deal. But notice that the player who follows the rule of the game symmetrically accepts the two situations, both the dealer and the player bust. The dealer wins, count with the dealer to bust. If you have bust, supposing although the player bust and bets are settled, the dealer plays on his hand. Anyway, the favor of the dealer, the edge gives him the probability of both the dealer and player bust. Since the dealer and player assume they're using the same strategy, table 1 dealer's probabilities ability to both of them. The overall probability each of busting is therefore 0.2836. Assuming statistic independence, no strategically value, but good instance high degree approximately leave of the deck is nearly complete on probability. The probability of both busting is 0.283% and 0.28% is 8.04% in favor of the dealer. As a result of this factor, the second non-symmetry in the game in effect with the player wins 1.5 units has natural, the dealer does not. Dealer, on the other hand, wins 1 unit from the player when he has a natural and the player doesn't. This happens about 4.68% of the time on each side, so player gains 1/2 of the amount of 2.34% from this factor. Thus, net dealer's edge is 8.07 minus 2.346, which gives them a 5.73%. The player who never busts. Another interesting figure to calculate is the advantage where the casino has against the player who never draws a possibility of a bust hand. First, we note that this means the player's hard standing numbers are all 12. However, the soft standing numbers are not determined, thus the problem is meaninglessly stated, since it's unanswerable to stand with assume a soft stands number of 17 and proceeds. As we pointed out earlier, common sense dictates that soft standing hands no more should always be at least 17. We know that 18 is always better than 17, or so 17 gives the player a greater advantage rate of the less than he would have than soft standing numbers of 18. We will call the player using the courteous strategy conservative. We will assert the true figure of the house advantage against the conservative player between 5 to 8%. Our evidence comes from our 3 sources. First, we ran an experiment in the 6 group with 100 hands that were able to play with the conservative strategy. The number of players unit loss ranged from 13 to 2, with an average of 7. The agreement of the one figure of 5 that the 8% is good, since the figure of 600 hands were selected in advance, not influenced with the result of the early hand. Standard formulas for the mathematical theory of probability apply to this data. We concluded that the three true figures of the house advantage almost certainly lies between 3 and 11%. Secondly, we ran hand calculations comparatively easy because of the low hard standing numbers that prove that the true figure will below 10%. Third, best Baldwin will co-authors given the figure of 4.25% of the house advantage against a player who stands on a hard 12 and never doubles down and splits aces or eights only. This is a fail specify stance. Fail to specify soft standing numbers. They be shown by splitting aces and eights as add less than 1% of the player's advantage of the correction. If any different soft standing numbers, if so, overall the order of 1 to 2%. Thus, the true figure estimated for the source is between 5 or 6% and 8%. Or the man who trimmed his barber. Disadvantage of such conservative players' amusement illustrated with the experience of the man who trimmed his barber, my friend professional John Blattner of the mathematics department of San Fran Valley State College. Blattner and his barber fell to talking about blackjack. One day, Blattner told the barber of his friend, who wrote a book on how to beat blackjack consistently. With the barber scoffed. Why is that easy? Said he. Anyone can win, just refusing to go bust, standing on a hard 12 always. Blatter tried to convince the barber that he was wrong. Eventually, barber toted the Blattner into a little game after closing hours. Blattner brought $160 at $5 and $10 a hand. The barber quickly lost an equal amount. Consequently, exclaimed the Blattner was the luckiest man he ever saw. After losing $160, he refused to quit and demanded a chance to get his money back. They played it on a $20 at a hand. When he was behind $1,200, the barber luck turned and he won back $300 of his losses. Then it was all over and he fell behind $1,500 and quit. The barber still believes Blattner is lucky. He delayed paying his losses. Finally, he decided to give the Blattner a free haircut. After a year of these, he cried that hard times were upon him and went back to charging Blattner. Barber insists that he will pay Blattner someday. Question, did Blattner trim his barber or did he? Alright, chapter 4, winning strategy.